To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
This is the best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. Well, did the weekend live up to your anticipation?
You know, here's the amazing thing. Again, a little bit behind the curtain in the sports talk industry.
Yes.
When you get past
Chop it up.
The NBA Finals, you kind of hit a spot where you're like, okay, we got to work now until about that third week in July when training camps open up. Because as far as the major sports, you know, with basketball being over, you're still in not even the middle of the season of baseball, hockey being over, football mini camps are over. You got to work. Well, let me tell you what. This has been fantastic.
Gold.
Fantastic between the golf and the U.S. Open, the basketball now with Kawhi Leonard. Thank you, man who never speaks, for doing what you've done for us in this one.
Remarkable.
This has been fantastic. And thank you to the U.S. Open because we had the leadership retreat at Pinehurst on Friday where we're going to play. There is not one shot I can hit on Friday that we didn't see in the last 4 days.
Golic and Wingo leadership retreat.
What better way to follow up the U.S. Open with what we're going, because what we're going to do at Pinehurst is absolutely what happened the first 3 days of the U.S. Open. It's going to be the same carnage.
All of the shots, legal or illegal, that you saw at the U.S. Open will be mimicked and actually surpassed at this leadership retreat. So excited to do that. Sports did the easiest thing in the world for us this weekend, because you're right. It's harder in the off season because it's sports we're a little less acquainted with for the most part. Pretty much every sport that had a headline this weekend boiled it down to the names we actually know and understand. They made it as simple as possible, and for that we are immensely thankful.
Well, the USGA is the gift that keeps on giving with what happened at Shinnecock. And also we got the World Cup, a lot of controversy there. So we got a lot to get into.
Yeah, we do.
We got some good guests coming up today. Brandel Chambly, the pint-sized provocateur from the Golf Channel, will join us, talk about the U.S. Open. Brad Faxon, who I'm going to give a hairbrush one time. Just give him a brush.
He's too busy being mad.
Exactly.
The whole golf world is just up in arms.
He will join us as well. Plus, Charles Barkley will stop by as the NBA draft is later on this week. So we got a lot to get to. We're very excited. And, of course, we've had something happen in the U.S. Open that hasn't happened since 1980s, the late 80s, when Curtis Strange was the last man to go back-to-back and win our national championship. So that is what Brooks Koepka now has. So let's dive in as we tell you what's trending. And that is where we began at the U.S. Open. One was about power, the other about patience. Brooks Koepka had a game for both. The U.S. Open, no matter the course, no matter the test, no matter the circumstance, pulled away from a four-way tie to lead with 3 birdies in 5 holes and held off an inspired round by Tommy Fleetwood to take his second straight U.S. Open.
How bad was Saturday? So this thing starts Thursday. Brooks Koepka shoots 5 over, and
75.
There are 4 tied at 1 under. Okay, so then the next day he shoots 4 under. Has a great day on Friday, but Dustin Johnson, you think, is pulling away from this thing. He's 4 under and alone in the lead. And then on Saturday, Koepka actually shoots 2 over par. Shoots 2 over par on Saturday and is tied for the lead. I mean, at +3, 4 players tied for the lead after Saturday at 3 over, and just all kind of attitude going on. Everybody's screaming at the USGA. Phil doing what Phil's doing out there.
Which we will get into.
Let me tell you what, from a spectator standpoint, Saturday, from the World Cup watching that to the golf, was that entertaining.
I think this was as close as golf got to the controversy and entertainment value that we're used to seeing in the other major sports where you get something like this where the USGA had to come out and address it. This was like their version of the NBA 2-minute report where we basically admitted we're wrong, knew we could have done something to prevent it and didn't, and now tried to address it as best we could going into Sunday, hoping we would all forget this in time for the end of the tournament to come around.
Yeah, we're never going to forget that, especially with what they've done twice now at this event. And that's the biggest problem. They've still not figured out quite how to stage a U.S. Open at Shinnecock, which is one of the most iconic golf courses in America. Because the same thing happened with the USGA, and we'll get into the controversy a little bit later in 2004, where they actually had to water one of the greens over the weekend between groupings, which never happens because nothing was holding. But I do find one thing that's interesting about this. All the guys that played well at the U.S. Open and were in contention Sunday, none of them were out there bitching about the setup of the golf course. They were just like, yeah, it's kind of sucks, but we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
We're going to find a way.
I mean, that's what you have to do. Yeah, obviously, you just got to play it. But yeah, there's a little bit of frustration level going on there, huh?
And then there was Phil who pinned the needle on the frustration.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit
later.
Wow. So a lot to get into there, but most importantly, Brooks Koepka now is on one of the shortest lists in the history of sports in this country. Here's the list of people that have repeated as U.S. Open champs. Willie Anderson. We all remember Willie. 1903, 1905. He did it 3 times in a row. John McDermott, Bobby Jones, Ralph Goldall, and then Ben Hogan in the 50s, Curtis Strange in the 80s, and now Brooks Koepka in back-to-back years, 2017 and 2018. And he did it in 2 completely different ways. Birdie Fest. I mean, absolute Birdie Fest at Erin Hills last year. 16 under par. And then a torture test over the weekend at Shinnecock.
And I'm going to say this so I just don't, and I don't care about the clock yet again. I was talking to the guys back there while you guys were talking. Did you guys mention Tommy Fleetwood?
Yeah.
No.
How you said no, you said yes.
We've said Tommy Fleetwood a little bit, but not
okay.
We said his name.
Yeah. How about, I mean, he has to be the sickest person out there. How do you shoot a 63 and still you want to throw up all over yourself, which we're going to get into as well? Because he missed that putt on 18. The putts he was making all day that he missed at the end was about as gimme as could be. That would have given him the record, but forgetting that, it would have ended up in a tie, and he'd be playing today 18 holes for the title, missing that short putt.
Stop that now.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So congratulations. We'll get into much more on the setup of the course and the Mickelson controversy a little bit later. Meanwhile, Jack Flaherty and 4 relievers combined on a 4-hitter. Matt Carpenter homered, and the St. Louis Cardinals beat the Cubs 5-0 to avoid a sweep on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
Yeah, Javier Baez, he took one off the elbow. That was the 14 home runs leading the Cubs there. He said it was just sore right now, but he should be all right.
I love it. I did enjoy in the broadcast too, A-Rod and company in there, and Alex Rodriguez goes, that's straight off what we call the funny bone. Oh, really? It's what baseball folks call the funny bone, is it? Yeah.
It's only in baseball. It's in their unwritten rule book.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't hit a guy. If you're going to hit a guy, hit him in a funny bone.
Write him down.
But here was the best part of this story is that the Cardinals get this one. Cardinals are 4 back. Cubs are just a half game off the lead there, both with winning records right now. But the Cardinals just stopped from being swept, right? In a 3-game series. So how many did the Cubs win? The Cubs won 2 or 3. So what is Joe Madden? Of course it's Joe Madden. What does he do before the presser starts? He plays about a minute's worth of Meatloaf's 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Just to get the point about, we lost this game, but you know what? We won the other 2, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Does anyone understand
Meatloaf? Yeah, it was fantastic.
Full Meatloaf.
Yeah, he did.
Does anyone understand mid-season baseball quite like Joe Madden?
Good stuff.
He's just a guy. Being self-aware, I think, is going to be something we talk about a lot on this show today in a number of different contexts, but being self-aware is something that's never really been an issue for Joe Madden. He kind of understands the context.
And then there's those that he could have just said it, but he plays it for the media. He ends up playing a minute of the song. It's just fantastic. Good stuff.
That's why he makes summer interesting all the way around. It's not very interesting if you're playing the Astros right now because you will lose. The Astros extended their winning streak to 11, the longest in the majors this season, with that 7-4 win Sunday in Kansas City. Only 4 reigning World Series champions have posted a longer winning streak over the last 80 seasons.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well right now. I would say have a game and a half lead over Seattle. Remember, we were talking about Seattle at the top of that division for a bit. Astros, they've outscored their opponents 81-40 during that streak. They're hitting .327 with 49 extra base hits, including 21 home runs. A total of 8 players with a minimum of 30 plate appearances have hit 300 or better during the streak. So I'd say they're about as hot as could be right now.
Yeah, this is the Astros team that we remember Verlander and company saying, should be the favorites coming into this season. But it's been interesting. You mentioned the Mariners and then the Angels, who sit right there in third in that division, who we know are basically waiting on and hanging in the balance now of how Shohei Ohtani responds to all that treatment. So there's a lot up in the air still for this division that has become sneaky one of the most interesting in baseball this season.
Well, it certainly feels like the powerhouses are in the American League this year with what the Astros are doing and what the Yankees and Red Sox continue to do. And the Indians?
Yeah.
And the Indians as well.
Sure, why not?
You bet. Yeah. Meanwhile, give it up for my pick, Mexico, baby. An historic 1-0 win over Germany yesterday, just its second win against Germany in 12 meetings all time. And by the way, they become the first team from CONCACAF to beat Germany at the World Cup in 8 tries.
How about that? I thought it would have been very exciting. Obviously, with Cristiano Ronaldo, what he did with his hat trick. Messi had the chance on the penalty kick.
Couple of chances late.
A penalty kick to tie the game. So
jacked it.
To me, it's been very exciting, and it's been exciting more because we had a draft here, and we all have, there's 4 of us.
Although we got a little controversy with that draft, Mike.
And for those that may not know, Trey does, I do, Mike, and then the staff each have 8 teams. We did a snake draft, so we all have at least one team from each group. So that's what we're excited about. Allie, I got to say, we got to change the scoring, okay? Yeah. I mean, Allie took control of this. She's giving me that look that I've seen out of my wife occasionally, like, you better shut up talking about me. Yeah. But we do have to change the scoring. And I think because the scoring.
Why else do we pick Switzerland, Morocco, and Saudi Arabia if we're not going to try to pick up some early points?
The scoring wasn't going to start until people got out of the first grouping of this. Yeah. So we're going to count all the games.
Yeah.
We're just going to score it like they score. 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, nothing if you lose, and let's see how many points we get.
Yeah, Trey, you said it earlier that really only the losers end up quibbling about the course right now. That's you guys all in this right now. Devin and I sitting over here undeterred. You can score this however you want. We're fine.
Do you know, I don't even, if we score it that way, I'd like to know, we're going to figure that out and see who's winning. Do you think you're winning?
Oh, yeah, we're in good shape no matter what. Again, we'll leave it to the losers to quibble about the details about scoring in the course. Devin and I are just going to stay.
I'm fairly certain I had one hellaciously good weekend.
There's no doubt I'm winning. So
Spain. Ronaldo kind of whatted me with the hat trick.
Yeah,
but we got Iceland with a huge draw against Argentina.
That
Mexico
was big
with
for
a
you.
Huge win.
That was a monster.
Switzerland ties Brazil.
Yeah.
I had a really, really good weekend. I need those points.
Yeah,
I want those points.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
We are making those points.
You guys sound desperate.
All right. Meanwhile, we continue here, and What's Trending is done, but we continue with Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka was clearly in the zone this weekend. In the Zone brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone and Koepka, after successfully defending for the first time since Curtis Strange did it in 1988-89, was asked which one did he think was better, his first U.S. Open or this one?
This one. This one's a lot sweeter. To go back-to-back, I mean, I really can't even put it into words. When you look back at the history, it's incredible. It really is. I really can't even put words to it. And, to win on 2 different styles of golf courses. I mean, I think I came in here on Wednesday or whatever and said that the golf courses kind of played very similar as far as shot shaping and the way they kind of look. And I still think that. But, I mean, obviously Shinnecock plays incredibly tough.
Well, you won at 16 under. At Erin Hills, and I think 1 over. Was the winning score. So just a difference of 17 strokes between years.
And he was paired with Dustin Johnson. They're good buddies. And
they're workout partners.
Said they actually prefer afternoon tee time so they can get a good workout in.
I mean, you look at Brooks Koepka and you understand why. He's a full-on meathead.
And I thought he was bigger than he was because we were talking about this at the end going, look at this dude. Look at how big he is. And we looked and he's like 6'1", $185.
Yep.
But he looks bigger, I guess, next to the smaller golfer. Because if I looked at him, we thought 6'2", 6'3", maybe about 220. I looked at him, I said, dude looks like a linebacker, but
nope.
He wasn't as big as I thought. Looks good out there.
He's a good-looking dude.
He is absolutely good-looking dude out there.
That's the face of golf right there. If you're looking for it right there, good-looking, young, strong, built like a sawed-off Tiger Woods. It's nice.
Well, it's like so many other, when you see like NBA guys on the floor and you see the point guards, it goes, man, they're small.
Yeah.
And then you meet them and they're 3 inches taller than you
are. Exactly right. Yeah.
Perspective is everything. But Koepka was able to do something. And, Koepka's one of those guys where it feels like his resting heart rate is about 4. You know what I mean? He never gets excited out there. And that, I think, helped a lot of people that did well in this tournament because there was a lot of controversy about the setup of the golf course, specifically on Saturday, when everybody threw it in reverse. I mean, Dustin Johnson
lost 7 strokes, right?
Yeah, 7. He was 7 over par. It was an absolute you-know-what show after what we'd seen for a couple of days, and people got a little crazy. They got so crazy that the USGA actually went on the Fox broadcast and say, yeah, we might have pushed it a little too far. My question is, guys, you did this in 2004 at Shinnecock. How did you not learn anything?
For you were there,
yes.
Okay, and you're the golfer out of the three of us.
Yes.
So explain to people a little bit, because we saw him golfing on Thursday and Friday. All of a sudden, Saturday, everybody lost their collective mind.
Thursday, there was carnage too because of the winds. Yeah,
and then Sunday, all of a sudden, Tommy Fleetwood is a putt away, an inch away from setting a record. Yeah. What made it so difficult? Because the weather didn't look that bad.
The weather was
on Saturday.
The weather was almost identical.
Okay, so why for us hack golfers out there? What was the issue?
2 things. The setup of the golf course and the pin placement. When I say setup of the golf course, that means how do you prepare the course to be played? The Shinnecock is an interesting dynamic because it's really they want it U.S. Open tough, but because it's close to the water, it has the Open Championship weather.
I heard a lot of those comparisons.
Where the wind can come in.
Right.
And so how you guard against losing the golf course. You heard Zach Johnson, who's won a couple of majors, a Masters and an Open Championship, said they lost the golf course Saturday afternoon. They didn't put enough water on the greens. And if you look at the color of the greens Saturday as opposed to Sunday, I mean, Saturday it was brown with maybe a hint of green. Mm-hmm. Sunday it was green with a hint of brown. So in other words, you could land the ball Sunday on the greens, and the ball would stay because it was a little more receptive. Whereas Saturday, with almost no water, the golf course was basically starved.
And the pin placement,
and the pin placements were brutal.
Okay,
there were 3 or 4 pin placements, especially on holes 12 through 15, that probably should not have been used. I mean, those greens there are quadrants on that green where no matter where the pin was, there's only about a 10-foot radius where you could try and stop it and keep it on the green.
So it wasn't even about shooting it at the pin. It was shooting at the spot where it would stay on the green.
Jack Nicklaus always had a line once, just because they put a pin on the green doesn't mean you have to aim for it.
No.
Because you want to
kind of ruined my whole thought of golf. I thought that's what you aim for all the time.
Boy, I have to recalibrate some things before this leadership
Tell that
retreat.
to Patrick Reed when he overshot a green and hit the flagpole and saved him.
Exactly.
One time.
But I mean, give you an example. Patrick Reed is a perfect example. Okay, everyone was just brutal out of the stretch on Saturday, right? He birdied the first 3 holes he played Sunday, and then he birdied 5 of the first 7 because he could aim at the flags where they were and the greens were holding. Give you an example. Saturday, for the entire field, there were 3 rounds in the 60s. Just 3. Sunday, there were 15. It was a different golf course Sunday.
Okay, so now what about the hacks like us that say, well, wait a minute, everybody's got to play on it?
Yeah.
I mean,
listen, that's legitimate.
Koepka was only 2 over for that day and tied for the lead through. Dustin was 7 over. I mean, everybody was golfing the same course.
And those guys that managed that and didn't freak out or say things like Zach Johnson did or
do things like Phil did,
hit a moving ball like Phil did. Guess what? They were at the top of the leaderboard. In fact, our guy Tony Finau was right there down the stretch. I thought he was going to pull it off, but he didn't make the birdie on 16, the par 5 that he needed. You have to mentally prepare for torture when you go to the U.S. Open. And my only issue is the USGA needs to decide what they want this to be, right? We all know what the Masters is going to be. They want the roars on the back 9 on Sunday. They want the eagles, the birdies. They want those numbers to get everybody in contention fired up. That's fine. The U.S. Open has always been a stern test. They call it the toughest test in golf. But they made it too tough on Saturday, and then they swung the pendulum completely the other way. Look, I want to give Tommy Fleetwood all the credit in the world. He had a 8-foot putt for the greatest round in the history of U.S. Open, and he missed it. But if you thought that round was out there Saturday, you're kidding yourself. There's no way that round would have been out there Saturday because of the setup of the golf course. He still had to do it and execute it, and it was an amazing round, but there was no chance in hell you're shooting a 63 or potentially 62 without the course was set up on Saturday. So to me, the bigger problem was the USGA had this thing in mind for 3 days. This is what we want. We want carnage. We want this. Because they're still a little sore about what happened last year at Erin Hills. They hate 16 under par. They hate 18 under par like it was in Congressional with Rory. And that's fine. Stick to it then. But then they were like, we overdid it, and then they swung the pendulum back the other way. So what you had was a golf course that played one way for 3 rounds and another way for Sunday, and I'm not sure that's right either.
So you have basically, again, in a number of instances, a bunch of which we haven't gotten to yet, golf kind of falling into a lot of the same traps that other sports have, one of which is falling very publicly to not only the people inside the sport, but all the noise around the sport, criticizing you for this one decision, and then folding so much so that you go against completely what had been your course of action. You fold in the face of all this outside pressure.
Exactly. And there was someone who I know very well that a pro told him, and this is no disrespect to the local PGA Tour event that's coming here this week, the Travelers Championship. He said a pro told him they've set this course up today like the first round at the Hartford. So it looks like a complete pendulum swing back the other way. It's just you expect a certain thing at the U.S. Open, and they overdid it a little bit, but then they compounded the error by swinging completely back the other way. A huge 180 pendulum swing.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Macy Gray, very nice. Golic and Wingo with you on a Monday morning, ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Can I, and this is about you, Trey, and I agree, more cowbell tweeted in, and when I had you kind of explain, I kind of knew, why the course was so tough Saturday, but I wanted someone like you who likes golf to explain it. More cowbell tweeted in, I live to be as excited as Trey Wingo gets when talking about golf. It is true. You go to another level when talking about golf.
It's my Stephen A. moment.
Yeah.
It's what you've been searching for.
I've always said I want to be happy about one thing in my life as Stephen cares about everything. So maybe this is it. I don't know.
You do.
And you know what? And you're incredibly knowledgeable too. That was all really helpful to us, which is why I have to bring this up now because I am very concerned about what you just said coming out of the break. Did you just reference that song as Macy Gray?
Yeah, well, that's not it.
No,
that's
Macy
TLC.
Gray. TLC.
Oh, but I think it's a remake of Macy Gray's.
We have to get on that. Is that a sample or something? I want to try and find a loophole for you because TLC Waterfalls. That's a pretty iconic song.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I'm pretty sure that was originally.
Let's put it this way: as we get ready to talk about Phil, we hope you're right.
Yeah, I hope I'm right.
I hope you're right. I want to.
There it is. TL Waterfall, Macy Gray mashup. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Winner,
Macy Gray's Oh, wait. No. That's a mashup cover. That's not.
Oh, okay.
That's not a.
Good try, though.
We're efforting this right now. The crack research team here is on this, but I needed to correct that for posterity because I
was going to leave it alone because I like you. Obviously, he doesn't so much.
I just, I needed to voice this because TLC matters to me.
You know what? And that's Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Speaking of Straight Talk, that might be the opposite of what came out of Phil Mickelson's mouth. On Saturday. For those that maybe don't care or were living in a cave or just waking up from a great bender somewhere, Phil Mickelson lit the golf world on fire Saturday when on the 13th green he missed a putt and was heading back to roll off the golf course, roll off the green, and he hit it as a moving ball.
He ran for the ball. He actually ran to it before it ran off the green to hit it back toward the hole.
Yes. So that sort of set everybody crazy because it just, you don't do that.
It's illegal.
It's frowned upon. Yes. It's like George Costanza. Is that wrong? Should I not have done that?
It's something we will be doing at Pinehurst, but we're allowed to.
With that same truffle shuffle.
And we're not trying to win the U.S. Open, which he has come in, ironically, second place 6 times, a record 6 times. So anyway, after the round where he was assessed a 2-stroke penalty by Rule 14.5 in golf for hitting a moving ball, here is what Phil Mickelson said.
I know what the rule is. It's 2-shot penalty, hitting a moving ball. The ball was going to go off in a bad spot. I didn't feel like continuing my display, and I gladly take the 2-shot penalty and move on. I don't mean it disrespectful. If you're taking it that way, that's not on me. I'm sorry that you're taking it that way. It's certainly not meant that way. But sometimes in these situations, it's just easier to take the 2 shots and move on.
Okay.
And that sounds great.
Well,
right?
see, and here's the thing: he had a little while, right? To kind of, before he talked to the media, and everybody was very curious as to what he was going to say. And he kind of laid it out there that if you wanted to take his word for it, you'd go, whether I agree with it or not, okay. If all that went through, because we always talk about decisions in sports, right? We talk about a football play. How many things you think about in a split second? You're like, okay, if all that went through his mind in that split second, I understand it. It happens in other sports, and it all sounded real good.
Phil, media savvy as they come, a guy who's used to the microphone in front of his face, had no doubt he was going to be ready for that moment.
But
expert level troll, okay? Especially at one point he said, "Well, I've been I've had that rule in my back pocket for a while, and I've wanted to use it.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
You got a little info here, don't you?
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay? ESPN's Ian O'Connor did a great article when he went and talked to people that were playing with Phil. His playing partner, Andrew Beef Johnson, was playing with him.
Love that dude's
And
look.
the standard bearer is the guy that walks behind the guys and holds their sign up that says what their score is. In Ian article, here is what Beef Johnson told him about what Phil said.
So this is what Phil said to Beef Johnson.
To Beef Johnson.
Okay.
And this is Beef saying, quote, he said, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that score that is or what happens now. And he started to speaking to the rules officials. It was a strange moment. And then the standard bearer with the group, a guy named Connor Buff, a 19-year-old Long Island kid and a student at the University of Albany, said he heard Mickelson tell the rules officials, whatever I get, I get. Just let me know what it is. In other words, this whole convenient story that Phil, I've been thinking about using this two-stroke penalty to my advantage whenever the situation presented itself. Get out of here. Complete, utter, total garbage.
So
not true.
Okay, so when this thing all first happened, and I saw it and heard Phil talk about it before knowing any of this, my thought was, man, the purists are going to lose their minds. And they did we heard one after another, ripping it. And I even tweeted out, my God, it may be bad in your sport, but let's relax where we're going with this thing. And now it's even blowing up even more to talk about changing his legacy. We got guys saying, and I still am not convinced I can go that far with that. But I will ask now, because we always talk about this. There's the crime and there's the cover-up.
Correct.
So what's worse here? What he did or how he tried to gloss it over with what he said when what he really said on the course is so different than that?
I think based off the reaction and the immediacy of it, I would still say the crime. There were people that, regardless of what he was going to say in that moment, I think had already made up their mind about what that moment meant to them as far as him as a golfer and the integrity of the game and all these things that were immediately called into question.
Yeah, look, I'm never going to, it's not going to, I'm not losing sleep over this.
I was going to say, again, you're more the golf guy than we are. What did you think?
I knew that as soon as he did it, his peers would look at him differently. I mean, that's to me.
Do you think it changes legacy?
I think it might.
Really?
I think it might. Within that community. I mean, there was the Fox broadcast team had an interview with a British writer.
Oh, yeah. I heard that.
He said he's an ass, a silly ass.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it went nuts. So remember this. You would never call hands under the mask, face mask on yourself.
Right, and you
golf,
as an O-lineman would never call, hey, ref, I held on that play. Right, so we do come at it from a different...
Exactly. Golf is the only sport where you call penalties on yourself. You're supposed to do that. And Andy North, two-time U.S. Open champion, let's just say he was not in any way pleased with Phil.
It wasn't funny. It was disappointing for the millions of people out there that enjoy this game that watch that. I would think that they're disappointed. And why? Well, this is one of the guys who's a legend in our game. And if that's how he wants to run out his career, I don't think he would have done that at the Masters, where he's won 3 times.
Why not?
Well, because he wouldn't do that there. I think he has enough respect for them. I think that was crazy. And this is one of the greatest short game players in the world. If that ball rolls off the green, you don't think he's got some kind of chance to maybe get it back up and in? Disappointed.
I don't think there's any doubt there was a ton of frustration with this round in what he was doing.
He blew a gasket.
So in the sense of, I'm sure in all the Masters he's played, he's had bad rounds where he was frustrated as well. So how much in your mind, because you were, again, on the premises for this, was about also hey, USGA, screw you guys. With this course today is ridiculous. So from the respect factor, he didn't have respect for what was going on that day. To Andy's point of, he would never do that at the Masters because of respect for Augusta.
Correct. I think this was him. I think there was a lot of it here. A, it was his 48th birthday. B, he knows that he has the record that no one wants. Hey, congratulations on being runner-up 6 times.
6 times, right.
I mean, this is probably the one tournament outside of the Masters he wanted to win more than any other. He's never going to do it. I mean, I don't think anybody at his vintage, at 48 or older, has ever won the U.S. Open. It's not going to happen. So I think there was a lot of frustration that was built into this, and I think he's just like, screw you guys. Basically, that's sort of the way I took it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, and I thought I heard you say it over the weekend. You thought he should have been DQ'd for this.
A lot of people think he should have been DQ'd.
And if he was, I would be fine with it. I tweeted he got a 2-stroke penalty, so he got penalized, and they're like, oh, he should have been DQ'd. I'm like, okay, if they DQ'd him, I'd have been fine with that as well. Whatever the rule says, fine by me.
And this is interesting to me because there's what should be the reaction, what is the reaction from within golf, and then how the rest of us treat it, because a lot of the sentiment seemed to be, this is why people don't identify with golf. It's stuffy.
And that's fair.
It's out of touch.
That's
well,
fair.
I don't think it is fair, actually, because sports is all about overreacting to things that out of context seem nonsensical. Golf here is just a victim of being less popular than a lot of the other sports, because Kevin Van Valkenburg, who writes for ESPN, the magazine, made the comparison to Deflategate.
Right.
His quote was, we spent a year and a half as NFL fans and media fighting over whether air pressure in footballs was the biggest scandal in sports.
And I thought it was the stupidest thing of all time.
And we all thought it was dumb, but it was a big deal because you're talking about a all-time player in Tom Brady who's got a legacy that has to do with the integrity of the game. A lot of the buzzwords marry up, and the reason it's such a big deal amongst his peers and amongst people paying attention is because his name is it's not some random golfer. It's not some, 132nd guy on the tour. It's Phil Bleepin' Mickelson.
And that leads us to an interesting point, and we'll have that discussion next. Coming up, if this was Milt Tickelson instead of Phil Mickelson, would he have been disqualified? And I think that's a very, very interesting discussion. And that is Straight Talk by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We'll have that discussion next. And don't forget, I want to hear what you guys have to say. 860-506-5505 about the course or about the Mickelson controversy. Let us know or Brooks Koepka. What is your lasting impression of this year's U.S. Open? Is it how the course was set up, what Mickelson did, or the fact that we had a repeat champion at our national championship for the first time in forever?
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Is your home an ADT home? If not, you have to get ADT and help protect against break-ins, fire, and carbon monoxide. For a limited time, get ADT's lowest rate starting at just $28.99 a month from the most trusted name in home security. Go to ADT.com/podcast to take advantage of ADT's lowest rate.
With 36-month monitoring contract, early termination and installation fees apply. Excludes taxes and fees. Applies to traditional services only. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Golic and Wingo here with you and Mike. I think, we put this out that we have to stick with it. We wanted to revolutionize the scoring system for our World Cup fantasy draft, and we're going to. But we might have thought this through a little.
Again,
bit.
We did the draft last week, so there's four of us.
Snake draft.
Trey, me, Mike, and the staff. So we each have 8 teams. Everybody has one team from each group. And originally we were waiting to score after the first teams got out of the first group, but like, let's just score it how it goes.
Right.
3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. That way teams that have no shot to get out of the sink can still get us a point with a tie or maybe an unexpected win like Mexico over Germany.
Right.
So we've changed the scoring to 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, nothing for a loss. And we were the ones, me and you, Trey, that were the sounding very loud to do this.
It's very important to us.
And because of that, we're tied for last.
There you go.
Go ahead. The new scoring system, Trey and I are last with 6 points. Mike, you are second with 8 points, and the staff is first with 10 points.
But I'm all in on England today, giving me 3 points against Tunisia.
So just to be clear, in the first segment when Dev and I were saying that only losers quibble about the scoring and the setup and that we would be perfectly comfortable with whatever happens because we're confident in our lot in life, and you guys scoffed at me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I finally get to.
We're those people.
All right,
we're those guys.
I just wanted to make sure we've established that the right way.
Going to be huge for me when England takes down Tunisia.
Hey, Mike, get off our lawn.
No, that's fine. Coulda, shoulda, wouldas are fine for us. Devin and I will be too busy winning.
Who's got Tunisia? Does the staff have Tunisia?
Does it matter?
Yeah.
Even if you win that match, you're still not going to be in first place. You guys make this big deal.
It's all about getting
you guys thought just because Germany lost that we wouldn't be doing well.
I'll get 3 points and I'll be within one of the lead.
All of you.
It's all, listen, my strategy has all been about England, Tunisia.
Oh, Germany lost. Oh, Mexico, great. Yeah, still in first.
My whole draw has been about England and Tunisia. I think that's clear at this point.
I need a t-shirt that says "Who's got Tunisia?"
Yeah.
I need it yesterday. That is the line of the show right now.
Okay.
If the podcast is not named "Who's got Tunisia?" We all don't need jobs tomorrow.
But here's the bigger question. If that was anybody else not named Phil Mickelson that did what he did Saturday, would he have been disqualified?
Well, first and foremost, I don't sit here and act like I know the rules. I have people saying he should have been disqualified, and the biggest difference is that he hit a moving ball instead of stopping a moving ball without driving us nuts with the intricacies of this. Give it to us in layman's terms of why he didn't get DQ'd.
Okay, here's the rule. It's Rule 14.5.
All right, you're already going too deep.
Well, I'm just telling you, these are the rules, okay? Mickelson had used his putter to stop the ball rather than swat at it. The action might have been compelled to disqualify. Rule 14.5 is a 2-stroke penalty for hitting a moving ball. However, USGA also says that a serious breach of Rule 1.2, which prohibits a player from taking an action and intends to influence the movement of a ball in play, may cause a committee to impose a penalty of disqualification. And then there's also Rule 33.7, which gives the USGA authority to DQ a player for a serious breach of etiquette. So really, they could have done whatever they wanted.
A serious breach of etiquette. Talk about the grayest of area. He breached etiquette. I mean,
we have a breach.
So here's the question. Okay, let's be honest. The USGA was already getting stinging criticism for the setup of the course Saturday. They had already lost Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, and Jordan Spieth to the cut line.
Right.
By the way, side note, cut line was 9 over. Saturday, if you were +9, you were top 25.
Yeah,
it
it's
just
amazing.
shows you how crazy it was. So if that was anybody else named Phil Mickelson, because they'd already gotten stinging criticism from the course, and they're like, can we now DQ?
You
Phil
can't
Mickelson?
do that at Bushwood.
Exactly.
They'd have been gone.
And I never slice.
They would have been gone.
Right?
If it was not
if
Phil.
it was Milt Mickelson,
I
think he would have been gone.
Yeah. I agree with that.
He would have been gone, but I don't know if the reaction would have been as strong, right? Like, I don't know if we'd be talking about it enough to care if he was gone, if it was Milt.
Agreed.
Mickelson.
But
That's the entire point.
Yes.
Because the USGA was already getting, I mean, Zach Johnson said they lost the course. Okay. They were getting a lot of crap for basically the way they set the golf course up. So now if you're the USGA, you're thinking, all right, we're already getting a ton of heat here, guys. We're making some of the same mistakes we made when we were 14 years ago. Do we really want to throw gas on the fire by throwing out arguably the most popular guy left in the field? And whether or not you like Phil or not, that's irrelevant. When he made a par on 13 on Sunday and raised his fist and the crowd went nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether you like him or not, they love him. The gallery loved him out there. So then do you really want to be that guy again twice if you're the USGA?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So here's the question, and Dr. Fun tweets this in, and by
the way, Dr. Fun, okay, that's right there with Who's Got Tunisia.
I really would like, because I know that one guy made the comparison of the year-long or over a year-long thing at Deflategate, but something to happen in a game. Dr. Fun says, regarding Phil and the outrage from golf purists, what would a similar infraction look like in, say, the NFL, MLB, or the NBA? This would help a lot of people understand why golf purists are so upset.
That's a great point.
So I would like to know that as well.
I have an example of something that one player thought about doing in another sport, but eventually didn't have to, which might have raised it to this level.
Okay.
And it's a really, you guys will really like this one.
Was it Milt Mickelson?
It wasn't Milt Mickelson. Milt Mickelson, you know what? Milt Mickelson plays for Tunisia. I just found that out.
Put him on the shirt.
Who's got Tunisia?
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
We are delighted to be joined by Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chambly on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Rule number one, if you're going to have dinner with Brandel Chambly Saturday night at the U.S. Open, just forget it. He doesn't show up till almost 11 o'clock. It was ridiculous, dude. We were so far in by the time you guys got there, we were done, just so you know.
You were. As the day went on, and I saw pictures of you, your eyes got a little redder as the day went on. I knew what I was getting into when I got there. But this is how I roll, I'm like, we get off the air at 10:30. What are you going to do? I mean, we don't get to dinner till 11. I keep singer's hours, basically.
Well, that's true, and he has vampire blood, so that also works. All right, Chambly, let's start first and foremost with there's two controversies that we've been dealing with this morning. First and foremost, the course setup. Can you explain? I tried to do a decent job with it, and I think I did a little bit of it, of the USGA's overreaction to Sunday setup as opposed to Saturdays when we saw the absolute carnage, because we had only 3 rounds in the 60s on Saturday, and they completely swung the pendulum the other way, and lo and behold, we had 15 60 rounds on Sunday.
Well, in 118 years of the U.S. Open, the biggest disparity that has ever been shot is 16 shots between a Saturday and a Sunday round. 16 shots. This year, Ricky Fowler shot 84, then 65. That's 19 shots. 19 shots. It's the biggest disparity in the history of the third and fourth round. And there was also somebody Patrick Rogers, who had 16 shots different. So in the history of 118 U.S. Opens, you got 2 of the greatest disparities. I think that pretty much sums it up. It wasn't that the golf course was unfair on Saturday. It was just the hole locations were just out of hand. Several of them were quite ridiculous. And as the day wore on, it turned the golf tournament completely inside out. You had players that were 45th. Never has that happened. 45th, who shoot 66. They didn't shoot 63 or 62. They shot 66 and made up 11 shots. It was, we had players at the top of the leaderboard who basically shuffled down to almost the bottom. So, I think everybody was pretty upset. This is, yet another U.S. Open where the USGA completely missed it.
So take us through a guy like Dustin Johnson who loses 7 strokes on Saturday. It never looks like anything affects him the way he acts out there. Tough to get, in my opinion, at least watching, to get a read on him. Talk about the mental side of that, playing Saturday when things are going bad on a course that's just destroying everybody.
Well, I think if I were Dustin Johnson, I'd have every reason to be upset. Not only, and if you look at who played Saturday afternoon, Dustin Johnson was 4 shots ahead. He played in the worst of the draw Thursday, Friday. His 6 closest pursuers all played in the best of the draw. So that'll tell you how much better he played than everybody else. So then he played by far in the worst of the draw on Saturday. So, throughout the week, there was nobody that played better golf than Dustin Johnson, but nobody was more unlucky. Nobody. I mean, luck plays a big part in all the championships and the outcome of them. But Dustin Johnson played the best golf of anybody. It was just that he got the worst luck of anybody in the field. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's upset about it.
Talking to Brandel Chambly on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And I guess speaking of upset, it seems like everyone has a lot of feelings about Phil Mickelson and what he put on display on the course on that 13th green this weekend. What was your reaction, and what's it been like watching golf sort of absorb this moment?
Well, if he'd have said he lost his mind, right? Because I don't know. The U.S. Open, I lost my mind. I think everybody would have said, okay, I kind of get that, even though with his position in the game, there's no excuse for it. But there would have been mostly everybody would have understood it. But when he came in and he said that he did it strategically and he did it to avoid having a more difficult shot run off the green, immediately he should have been disqualified. Immediately, because that's a serious breach of the rule and it demands that you be disqualified. The USGA has a knack. You go back a couple of years ago, they penalized Dustin Johnson for something that made absolutely no sense. And they did not disqualify Phil Mickelson for something that made perfect sense. Why they didn't do it, I have no idea. So again, they missed the boat. And as regards to Phil Mickelson, never, ever in my life have I ever seen anything like it. Yeah, okay, John Daly's done something like it. Kirk Triplett kind of did something like it. But never, no disrespect to them, they weren't the player that Phil Mickelson is. They didn't hold the place in the game. There'll be kids trying to go do this. They'll call it a Mickelson. This will catch on. He has that kind of influence. There's no video of Arnold Palmer or Bobby Jones or Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, Nancy. There's no video of any great player ever doing this. And then Phil thought he was clever. He was trying to say, I'm smarter than everybody else. And if you thought this without a lie, you need to toughen up, with that tango smile of his. So it was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Well, to that point, Brandel, as we're talking about Phil Mickelson hitting that moving ball on the 13th green on Saturday, the big that's obviously a big part of it. But then what he said afterwards didn't jibe with what his playing partner said that he said at the time. When he was being interviewed with Curtis Strange on Fox, he said, well, I've had that rule in my back pocket I've wanted to use a bunch of times. But if you listen to his playing partner, Beef Johnson, he said to the officials, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to get what I get. So we're seeing two completely different stories here.
Yeah. The second it happened, I thought to myself, boy, he's got an hour now to think of a proper excuse for what he did. I'm pretty sure that's why he did it, because it was going to run off to the front of the green. And then he said as much. That's exactly what we thought. It's going to run off the front of the green. He's going to have the same pitch that he just had, and who knows, he'll go, because he had been to the back of the green. He chipped it to the front. And meanwhile, playing at the exact same time, Daniel Berger, I'm trying to remember who, Tony Finau. They managed to make par birdie on that hole. So, it wasn't like it was unplayable. It was certainly a ridiculous hole location. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. It was a ridiculous hole location. But it wasn't unplayable like people like to say. The scoring average on that hole was 4.5 for the day, and that's including Phil's 10. So it wasn't like everybody was making double or triple on the hole. He said he did it to get an advantage. No question about it. How the USGA does not say, Phil, off you go, is beyond me. And then how Phil doesn't just WD after he realizes what he said and actually understood the rule. I don't think he understood the rule. It's just beyond me. It's one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen. And it'll be, yet again, another part of Phil's legacy, just like his comments after the 2014 Ryder Cup. That's where he basically worked from the inside out and sabotaged Tom Watson's Ryder Cup team. And then just basically stole the limelight away from the Europeans' success after winning it. So, it pretty much shows, what Phil's capable of, and it was hard to believe.
Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chambly on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So a lot of times we talk about the NCAA and when there's an infraction there, and then the team or the school tries to cover it up, and we always ask, which is worse, the infraction or the cover up? So for golf, for you golf people, for all the golf purists out there.
You golf people.
Yeah, I didn't mean to golf people. What's worse, what he did or his explanation of trying to cover it up?
That's a good question. I'd say what he did. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably his explanation. If he had come in and just owned up to it, if he had just come in and said, I don't know, I guess he did it for an advantage. The cover-up, by the USGA. It was just bad all the way around. The actual event, his explanation of it, the USGA not DQing him. It was like 1, 2, 3. It was like a trifecta of lunacy. It's like, I don't know. Good question. They were all ridiculous. Somebody needed to have a clear head in this and say, you're disqualified or I withdrew. But the actual event will go down. This will be a part of his legacy. It'll run. 20 years from now, I'm sure 20 years from now, people will be, they'll be giving him grief about it tomorrow. And today they'll be giving him grief about it. And it's real easy to laugh at it. It really is. It was, I get it. It was as funny as it was stupid. But when you actually look at who Phil is and realize that there is no equivalent to this, given his place in the game, it was just lunacy. And it actually stole away from the play that day. Instead of us getting on the air and talking about Tony Finau 66 or Daniel Berger 66 and talking about the implications of the day and how it went, we mostly talked about Phil Mickelson. So once again, just like the Ryder Cup in 2014, he stole the luster away from those who deserved it.
Well, with that in mind, as Brandel Chambly from the Golf Channel is with us, you just said because he's Phil. So let me ask you this. If that had been anybody else not named Phil Mickelson, with the withering criticism that the USGA had been heaped on by players and other people for the course setup, whether it was fair or not, if that was somebody else, would it have been disqualified, or was he not disqualified because he was Phil Mickelson?
Well, I think everybody else would have been disqualified unless they had similar status to Phil Mickelson. It doesn't appear like there's an equitable disbursement of the rules, does it? Dustin Johnson getting a penalty 2 years ago when he took a practice stroke beside his golf ball, did not hit his golf ball, and his golf ball moved. And they come in and say, Dustin Johnson, I think if you look at it, he won by 3.
Right.
But he actually won by 4. But the USGA just took a stroke from him, and at the end of it, Dustin, he's such a nice guy. I don't care. Just take the stroke away from me. I still want to know. But he didn't really fight for it. He didn't protest. I just can't imagine Phil getting in that situation. So Phil sort of, squirmed his way out of this one, and the USGA sort of acquiesced to his position in the game.
A little disappointing because it takes away from what should have been the headline, which is Brooks Koepka doing something that hadn't been done since Curtis Strange did it in 1988 and 1980.
Exactly right. Yeah, right. Exactly right.
Brandel, always good to talk to you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Nice talking to you both. Y'all take care.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
I'm a one-trick pony, literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
We could talk to soccer analyst Taylor Twellman forever about golf because I know he's a big golf guy. Yeah. There is this World Cup thing going on.
Maybe.
So we get into that. First of all, so you feel I'm good with England over Tunisia,
I do.
Right?
Yeah,
is Vardy going to score?
I hope Vardy plays because I think he's a little bit more dynamic in this game. But to give it to you, Tunisia's going to park a bus, a 747, everything they can to stop England going forward. Yeah. I think Vardy's going to score, if not Harry Kane.
If you had to take one or the other, Kane or Vardy, who are you more likely? Kane? All right, taking Kane.
All right,
fine. We're
good. So we certainly want to get into the games
England,
that
over
are going
Tunisia.
on, again, because of our snake draft here. We, Trey, myself, my son, and the staff, 4 different teams. Everybody has 8 teams. Okay. You've taken a quick look at the teams. Who do you think kind of has the advantage right now?
I still think you two do.
Me and Trey.
Yes, I think Belgium's going to have a result, so you're good there. I think Spain, even though they tied Portugal 3-3, I still think Spain is going to be in the World Cup final, so you guys are okay.
Right now, the staff leads with 10 points. Mike and Devin have 8, and Trey and I have 6. So
but that's because Russia won 5-0 against Saudi Arabia.
Give me a break with that. Come on.
Who picks Russia anyways in this?
Before we get into
conversation about that one,
what's going on the field, we have to continue to ask the U.S. soccer. Not in this. Why aren't they in this? And how close are they to being where you all want them and we all want them to be?
Ask me about Phil Mickelson. It's more fun.
You went off pretty strong when we did lose to, was it Trinidad and Tobago? Yeah,
Trinidad and Tobago's third string for the record. Yeah. Not their first string. Their third string.
That's important.
Neither here nor there. It's difficult. Honestly, guys, it's difficult to put into words what the feeling is for a lot of us that have worn the red, white, and blue to sit here and say, in this region with Mexico and Costa Rica and Panama, where we've dominated over the last 20 years, and this conversation of we want to compete against Messi, Argentina, Colombia's of the world, and we can't beat Trinidad's third team?
Yeah.
Like, it's a real wake-up call. But for the American sports fan, it happened in Europe. For Germany, and it happened 14 years ago. And after they had the debacle of the European Championships, they came together, they wrote a 10-year plan. Guess what happened 10 years later? They won the World Cup.
Yep.
So I hope, and I'm not saying the United States is going to win the World Cup. That's not what I'm saying. But I hope, Mike and Trey, that they look at this and say, you know what? This is the moment that we regroup. We look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to change a couple of things. And we've got to really look at how we develop players.
Okay, what do they need to do? You said, look in the mirror, we need to change things. What do they need to do?
They've got to change the focus about making money and developing. Why is our sport, my sport, the only sport in our country that is so pay to play and it's exclusive, not inclusive? So the most difficult thing, and you know this, you don't have to be you could be a soccer dad. You could be just an American citizen that looks at soccer in our country. It's a privileged sport. That's first and foremost. It's a suburban white sport. You have to pay coaches. You have to pay fields. I can go on and on and on. I'm not going to ruin the radio show with this. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
But think of Iceland, because I'm looking over here and someone's got Iceland.
That's me, baby. Let's go.
That's the same size of Corpus Christi, Texas.
Right.
If you want to get the highest level of coaching in Europe, in Iceland, it costs you roughly $1,000. If you want to get that exact same coaching license in the United States of America, it costs you $40,000. Travel, going through the process. Follow where I'm going?
Yes.
So Iceland 15 years ago said, if we're going to maximize our 330,000 population, we've got to make the coaches easily accessible. They've got to all be better coaches. That's just one example compared to what we're doing here, if that makes any sense.
It does. The Iceland coach is a dentist.
Is a dentist,
right?
I mean, his actual job as a dentist, coaching the World Cup team, but the national team is actually his side job. Okay, so speaking of Iceland, they were interesting in the first round. They got the draw with Argentina because Messi came up short on a free kick and a penalty kick. And you know the rap of both Ronaldo and Messi that they've come up short on the big stages. Finally, Ronaldo got Portugal to the Euros in 2016. Then, ironically, or whatever you want to call it, he got injured and they went on to win that game and win the Euros. He comes through with a hat trick for the ages against Spain, which really killed me in the first round. But Messi comes up short again. And everyone knows Messi is how unbelievable he is. Does he need a seminal moment in this World Cup to cement his legacy?
Well, he went to the final in 2014, won the Golden Ball, but you just hit the nail on the head. He didn't win it. Diego Maradona won it.
Yes.
And for all the trials and tribulations that Diego Maradona has had in his life, he's still 1A and Messi's 1B, no matter how you slice it. Why is Ronaldo scoring a hat trick in the first game? Because all the pressure is off of him. Right. He's won the major championship with the European Championship. So I don't find it ironic that he has that kind of game against one of the favorites in Spain. So when I look at Messi, is it unfair? Sure, but life isn't always fair. And that's kind of the burden he carries right now. But we're taken away with what Iceland did. Iceland in the Euros, Cristiano Ronaldo had 10 shots. No goals.
Right.
In the World Cup 2 years later, Messi had 11 shots, no goals. It's more about what Iceland did than it is what Argentina didn't. And I think that's what needs to be the storyline. But as we all know, the superstars take the headlines, and Messi didn't show up.
Yeah, this is the LeBron, Michael Jordan situation sort of with these two guys going forward. How big was the upset of Mexico over Germany?
Massive.
CONCACAF had never beaten Germany in this stage.
Nope, massive, Trey. It's hard to put into words because when you look at what Mexico's done in the World Cup, this may be their biggest moment. This group, if you finish second more often than not, as you guys look at your board, you're playing Spain in the round of 16. Yeah. In the last 6 World Cups for Mexico, round of 16, they go home. So that's been their nemesis. They want to win this group. I didn't think they could get 3 points, but what's more shocking is how old, slow, anemic, one-dimensional Germany looked throughout the entire game. It looked like they were running in quicksand. It was remarkable to me that Yugi Love got completely outmanaged by Juan Carlos Osorio. But I warn everyone, Mexico traditionally will then lay an egg and they have a flat performance because they've put all this into one basket. They've got to make sure they at least get a point in the next game.
So quickly on Germany, because I talk a lot in sports about the mental side of things, and we just talked about it with golf when the course is so tough mentally, how you handle it. How do they handle Germany after getting upset like this? And obviously they can still put themselves in a great position, but from a soccer player standpoint, when you lose a game like this.
Golic, the one thing you don't have to worry about Germany's mentality. And quite honestly, you just punch them right in the face. I'd be scared if Sweden, South Korea, because now Germany looks at it and says 6 points we're going through. Sweden's going to be a more difficult task for Germany than they think. They obviously got past Italy to get to this stage. But I'd be scared of Germany because Yugi Love he's pushed all the right buttons with this situation. I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of those old slow players are out of the lineup. He brings in a little bit more youth. I'd be stunned if Germany doesn't get through. And quite honestly, I'd still be shocked if Germany doesn't win the group. I still think Mexico is going to finish with 4 or 5 points. They're not going to finish with 6. And I see Germany winning their last 2 games. Right, makes it more interesting.
It absolutely does, as our soccer analyst Taylor Twellman is here in studio with us. So if we're talking about Mexico, I have to bring this up. What is going on with former U.S. soccer star Landon Donovan openly saying, hey, people should pull for Mexico?
What was your reaction reading it?
I was a little taken aback, actually. And then he sort of went back and forth with some people.
With former teammates.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But before I was really diving into it, when I first saw it, I thought, well, the U.S. isn't in it, so is he just picking somebody else to root for? But how deep does it go?
It'd be like Notre Dame rooting for Michigan in the BCS. Would you do it? Would you hold up a Michigan flag?
For me, it would be more USC, which I couldn't do.
Okay, fine. But my apologies with the analogy.
I'm with you. Couldn't do it.
You'd throw up before you do it. As I tweeted, I'd rather cut off a toe than root for Mexico. It's the same Mexican team that when we were playing at Azteca and Obama gets elected, they're screaming Osama. Like it's healthy to be rivals. It's no problem with it. Everyone has their own price tag, apparently.
Whoa.
But I'm going to finish it with this because a former teammate of ours, Carlos Bocanegra, tweeted Landon Donovan. Landon went from 0 to 100 about building bridges, not barriers, about Mexican Americans and whatnot. And yet this is the same guy that questioned German Americans and whether or not they were passionate enough to wear the red, white, and blue. I'm confused. All I'm saying is I'm not going to root for Mexico. That's the same team that tried to literally kick our rear ends in World Cup qualifying. That's the same team that the players tried to break my leg playing. Why do I have to root for them? It's healthy. It doesn't mean I hate Mexican Americans. It doesn't mean we need to build a wall. I'm not saying that. It's healthy.
It's a rivalry.
It's a rivalry. But in 2018, apparently we can't do this. But I'll leave it with this for you guys. What would you do if Messi was holding up a Brazilian flag yesterday? It would never happen because it's healthy. He's not saying anything about Brazilians.
Is this just Mexico? What if Landon was, had a deal and to root for Portugal?
Completely different.
Okay.
Completely different because that is our bitter rival. That is our rival.
Okay.
The other aspect of this that the listeners need to know this is Wells Fargo fired 5,000 plus employees for creating fake accounts. They were fined $1 billion.
Right.
Majority of those people, customers, Mexican Americans. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So it just came across as extremely tone deaf to me, but it's all for me about a rivalry. I don't care how much money you ask me. I'm not rooting for Mexico. I'm sorry. But as an analyst, I'll tip my cap and say, well done. But I'm red, white, and blue. I wore red, white, and blue, and I can't look at the American soccer fan and sports fan and say, guys, we're not there, so let's root for Mexico. Wear your green and red and white.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing it.
That's
I'm
a
sorry.
line a lot of people don't want to.
It'd be like asking me, Trey, to throw in a Cubs hat right now growing up in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's not happening.
No, it's 0.0 chance.
That's it. I'm glad you brought that up because the whole St. Louis thing, that is the soccer. A lot of people think it's a soccer capital. The 94 team, I think, was half you guys, right? It was you, Sorber, McKenna, it was unbelievable how many of those guys were on that 94 team. Okay, you mentioned Germany. You still think Germany's going to be okay. Brazil, a tie with Switzerland.
Yeah.
How much are you concerned about Brazil, the second betting favorite going in?
Anxiety, pressure. I don't think any of us in this room, and I know Golic played at the highest level, and I've played at the highest level, and Trey, we all do things. Pressure's one thing. When you lose 4 years ago, 7-1 on the national stage at home, I don't think people fully understand the magnitude and what that did to the people of Brazil, let alone these players. Now, it's a different team, so they're a little bit more balanced. I think it's their best team they've had in the last 5 World Cups. But my goodness, there's pressure. You're up 1-0 against Switzerland. They completely outplayed them. I looked at a couple people in the green room and I said, they're going to win this game 2-3-0. But then Neymar starts doing his tricky-dicky stuff, and then all of a sudden in the corner, Switzerland comes in. Now, it was a foul, and video review should have changed it. Besides the point, the end score, 1-1. Pressure and anxiety on Brazil is unlike any other team in this world, and I think that showed it in the second half against Switzerland.
So, as far as overall, I don't know how many teams you have in like a top tier. Like, these are the absolute 1, 2, 3
I have
teams.
probably 3 favorites.
All right, so after those 3, in that next group, which team could win the whole thing?
People are going to laugh at this because I don't have France in my Brazil, Spain, Germany before the tournament, but France is easy.
I've heard that from a lot of people, actually. Yep. France, yeah.
France is the most talented team there, Golic, but they always have a mentality thing. You asked about mentality.
Right.
Germany doesn't have to worry about.
France does.
The French do. Yeah. The French do, and that's just.
I have France.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. But the thing is, though, they're the most talented team there. So if they get it all together and come together for 3.5 weeks, then besides the point, if they get along the rest of it. But 2010, guys, in the World Cup in South Africa, they walked off the field.
Yeah.
Boycotted. So you don't expect the unexpected with the French, but they're the one team where if they click and do everything right, they could run away with this tournament.
Okay.
We were in Paris actually on a vacation during the 2006 World Cup, and everyone was at Allez les Bleus. That's all they were screaming everywhere. And then they got to the final, and somehow Italy.
Well, Zidane headbutted.
Yeah, that was not the greatest thing he'd ever done.
I like how you just glossed right over that.
Kind of lost his mind. You know what? He pulled a Mickelson.
He pulled a Mickelson.
There you go.
Pulled a Mickelson.
Or you could say Mickelson pulled a Zinedine Zidane. Might be a better way to say it chronologically.
But Zidane didn't have the choice of whether or not to DQ himself.
Correct.
That is true.
But more importantly, I'm good with England over Tunisia, right?
Yeah, you'll be fine.
It's making my day.
You're getting your 3 points.
When they tie 0-0 today, lose my number. Don't call me.
Deleted. Taylor Twellman with us.
Thanks,
Listen,
man.
thank you for that. We're going to have you back for more of a breakdown. This was awesome.
No problem, boy.
Golic
Makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
and Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today.
We're delighted to be joined now by Charles Barkley, Basketball Hall of Famer. Charles, how much pressure was there on Family Feud?
A ton of pressure. When you only have a couple seconds and they're going to put that little X up, it was very nerve-wracking. It was a lot of fun. Shout out to Steve Harvey and all those people. But, man, it is nerve-wracking. I got to admit that. Especially I got Shaq, who's not the brightest bulb in the shop also.
And that's another thing that, and I didn't see this, but when somebody gives an answer that's obviously a bad answer, I always hate when everybody else on the team claps. Someone needs you to say, that was a stupid answer. Why would you say something like that?
You know what, man? Golic, it is so stressful though because number one, you're trying to listen to what they're going to say because you don't want to. You can't say the same stupid answer. Right. So you have to wait what they're going to say, then come up with your answer quickly.
It does seem nerve-wracking.
Time is of the essence. There's no question about that.
So fun.
Charles Barkley, Basketball Hall of Famer, does a great job on TNT, is with us this morning. Speaking of Shaq, you guys do a great job on the show. He had some words of advice for LeBron. Basically, don't chase the ring like I did at the end of my career. We're obviously, Charles, in the summer of LeBron. What do you think? What advice would you give LeBron about the decision he's going to make next?
Stay in Cleveland. He's a legend there. He's not going to enhance his legacy. In my opinion, he's one of the 5 or 6, 7 greatest players ever. Winning another ring as a mercenary ain't going to enhance his legacy. I agree with Shaq, and I think Shaq understands he made a mistake ring chasing at the end, and his career didn't end the way he wanted to. So I agree with Shaq. Listen, we can debate. We've been through this with Kobe when they get close to Michael. Listen, Michael is to go, then Kobe and LeBron are right there on his coattails, but none of them ever going to catch him. Because like I said, if he goes to the Lakers or Celtics or somewhere else, he'll be a mercenary. He won't be a Cleveland legend. Like that winning that one championship was worth 2, in my opinion, when he was there. So I hope he stays in Cleveland. I do. I hope he stays in Cleveland. The guy's an amazing person. He's an amazing player, but he doesn't need another ring to justify his greatness. His legacy is secure already.
Speaking as someone born and raised in Cleveland, I hope he stays in Cleveland as well. And this is going to play itself out, as we'll see on the monster stage. But something that got added to it, Charles, how surprised are you at how this Kawhi Leonard situation is kind of unfolding with maybe he doesn't want to be in San Antonio anymore?
Well, that's just disappointing for me as a guy who the Spurs. They're the best organization. I think they're the best organization we've ever had in the NBA. I mean, the Celtics have won more championships, but they had all the great players back in the day. What the Bulls did is amazing. What the Warriors are doing is amazing because, they got the best players. But what they've done in San Antonio, a small market for the last 20 years, the way they did it, you go back, they won the first championship with David Robinson, their best player. Then they won the next couple with Tim Duncan. Then they went to Tony Parker and Ginobili. Then they went to Kawhi Leonard to win with so many different styles, to go from big to little and be just a class and win all those 50 games every year. I'm disappointed he wants to leave the best organization in the NBA.
As Charles Barkley is with us, Charles, if this were any other superstar in any other city, would this be a much bigger story about how this unfolded the entire year? Because Kawhi never speaks, and San Antonio is a smaller market, and they just seem to win all the time. So it sort of felt like, well, we'll just see how this all plays out. Imagine if this was some other superstar in a different city. How much bigger or different would we be looking at this story?
Well, I think the thing, Greeny, is it just happened so suddenly.
Trey, actually. Greeny's no longer with us.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Clyde,
I apologize.
Clyde, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
but my bad. But so I think it just came out of nowhere so suddenly because I think everybody assumed it was going to work out. Then Kawhi drops the bombshell Friday at the end of the day. So I think it just kind of caught everybody off guard. And listen, I blame Kawhi for a lot of this stuff. If he wants to leave, he got to come out and say he wants to leave. Mm-hmm. We don't even know if this stuff is true yet. I'm not disparaging any other reporter. They've got, quote-unquote, their sources. If he wants to leave, just say, hey, I've had enough of San Antonio. Don't use the doctor's excuse. I think that's cowardly, using the doctor's excuse. Listen, I hear that he's upset that the Spurs misdiagnosis. You think the San Antonio Spurs really wanted to make a mistake on arguably the second or third best player in the world? They might have screwed up. I don't know the answer to that question. But this notion that they tried to do this to alienate one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world is laughable. Just say, hey, just sit down. If it doesn't work, just say, listen, you know what? I want to go to a bigger market. I want to make more money, and I want to be able to compete with the Warriors. Just say that. Don't say I've lost trust in the Spurs because the doctor misdiagnosed me. First of all, I warn every professional doctor. My personal doctor is Dr. James Andrews. He's the best doctor in the world. Every time I got hurt, every single time I got hurt, I listened to the team doctor first. Then I took all my MRIs and X-rays to Dr. Andrews. Every NBA or NFL player should always have their own personal doctor look at their X-rays, the MRIs.
Correct.
I respect the team doctors, but their job is to get you back out there. But I'm disappointed they're trying to say they're upset because the doctor misdiagnosed his quad injury. Listen, they might have made a mistake, but they wasn't trying to do it to alienate Kawhi Leonard.
Man, I'm disappointed you do one interview about your gambling habits and you call me Greenie. I was a little upset about that. I'm not going to be honest with you. As Charles Barkley is with us as we move on. Seriously, though, if you had a team of LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George, could this be a team in Los Angeles that could deal with the Warriors?
They'd be really good. But the problem they're going to have is they're probably going to give everybody up on their team to get Kawhi. That's the first thing. I mean, Kawhi is a great. And what you going to, so right now you're probably starting out with just 3 players because you listen. And I'm not sure there's anybody on the Lakers team good enough for me to want to take. Well, let me rephrase that. There's nobody on the Lakers team that I want to take 2 or 3 of for Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
They're not any good. So I'm not taking any of those players. But my biggest thing is, if I'm the San Antonio Spurs, I'm not going to help the Lakers build a super team. That just makes no sense whatsoever. So, like I say, number one, they don't have any players the Spurs want. I don't think, in my opinion, because they're going to have to give up probably 2 or 3 players. And I look at that roster, I'm like, they got some decent players, but there's not 3 or 4 players on that team you look at and say, okay, if we get these guys.
And apparently he went on a massive swear rant. That's
wow.
what just happened.
Wow.
I think we lost his phone. Is he there?
We got you.
We got him? Okay, we thought you lost it for a second. Continue.
Yeah, but listen, but the main thing, I don't understand, because, obviously the big elephant in the room is LeBron, but I'm not going to help the Lakers build a super team. That makes no sense whatsoever, and play against them for the next 5 to 10 years. So I don't see him going to L.A. in any shape, form whatsoever.
And maybe it looks like when the Celtics tried to trade for Kawhi in February, if they may come after Danny Ainge may get involved. They certainly have some talented players to head over to San Antonio. As far as speaking of talented players and young players, looking at the draft and more to the type of player in today's game, Charles, you have Luka Doncic, the 6'8" guard who can pass the ball incredibly well. Along the lines, you look at a guy like Ben Simmons, the tall point guard that can pass the ball, though Ben doesn't shoot very well. But that tall guy who can pass it, or DeAndre Ayton, that 7'1" guy that can shoot the 3 or play inside as well. Which do you go for if you're putting together a team in the NBA today?
Well, I've been talking to a lot of these NBA general managers when I was scouting for getting ready for March Madness. I told them last year that Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum, Dennis Smith Jr., Donovan Mitchell were the 4 best players that I saw doing my scouting, getting ready. This year, I told them, first of all, you'd be a fool to pass on DeAndre Ayton. You'd be a fool to pass on Mo Bamba. I think those are the 2 best players in the draft, period. I like Wendell Carter from Duke and Bagley from Duke. And I like Jackson from Michigan State. But those are the 5 best players that I saw when I was getting ready. But Ayton and Bamba are the 2 best. Those other 3 guys, Bagley, Carter, and Jackson, are very good. I think they got a chance of being very good. But I'm not passing on Ayton or Bamba, period, if I got 1 or 2.
Yeah, just the wingspan of Bamba is absolutely
incredible.
Insane, and how much floor he can cover defensively. Charles Barkley is with us. Charles, before we let you go, we know you have a love-hate relationship with golf. What did you think of the U.S. Open?
Ooh, man, I felt bad because we're talking more about Phil Mickelson in the golf course than we are about what a great performance Brooks put up.
Right.
So, man, the course got out of hand clearly. But listen, I love Phil, but he was wrong. But I think people are overreacting to it. He made a mistake. Let's move on. But people aren't talking about what Brooks Koepka did. I mean, he's been unbelievable. It's hard to imagine, though, that he's won more majors than regular golf tournaments.
Right. Yeah. He's got 2 U.S. Opens and one other win. The Waste Management Open in Phoenix.
That's a crazy stat. I'm a big Brooks Koepka fan. I think most people close to me, you guys are friends with me, but you don't know me. I have a sleeping disorder. I don't sleep a lot.
Yeah, join the club.
So I'm always up watching golf on the European tour. So Brooks Koepka and Peter Uihlein, I started following them about 5 or 6 years ago when they were both playing overseas, and I was like, that's the way, if I was a college player, I think that's the way I would try to get to the PGA Tour, to just go over Europe and rough it for a couple years. Because I saw Uihlein and Brooks Koepka, you're always going to play in crappy weather.
Right.
You probably got to worry about where you're going to get a good meal. I think that toughens you up for the long haul.
Well, and listen, Koepka plays out there like he's asleep. So, nothing seems to bother him. See, this is why I like talking to Charles. You always learn something new when you have an interview with Charles Barkley. Chuck, we appreciate you being with us. Ho Grant, great to have you on the show today, man. Thank you so much.
Green and Wingo, thanks for having me.
You got it, brother. Charles Barkley with us on the show. Always great.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.